All right, take 22 in a way. I recorded this entire video and none of the audio worked actually. So see if this works. This video here is meant to kind of provide an update to the cover letter discussion for success video. And there's about three things I think I want to achieve in this. I don't want to delete this video entirely. The reason being is this video was made prior to a significant Moodle update. Now it's been quite some time and this updated video has been needed, but I think there's some good information still in that video about kind of some concepts, so I'm not going to delete that entirely just yet. The three things I want to do in this video, in this updated video, is kind of first is to give you a updated visual experience of what Moodle looks like, right? So you're potentially not feel like you're maybe doing something wrong or on the wrong track, right? And then I want to talk about how each module works and also some concepts for this assignment. So if you look at the beginning of each module, what you're going to see is a set of module objectives right here. Upon completion of this module, students will be able to. And there's 7 things that by the end of this module you should be able to do in a not master in a way. Sometimes like these concepts aren't entirely mastered, but to show a proficiency in these ideas. So first we want to explain why historians, individuals, and society practice history, articulate the value of studying the past, explain the concept and value of historical literacy, be able to articulate the characteristics of primary and secondary sources, evaluate historical sources, and show an ability to classify those sources as primary and secondary. So not only be able to articulate what primary and secondary sources are, but be able to pick up one like this right here and say, all right, this was written by a historian about the past, secondary source because it offers interpretation instead of maybe something that is more of a primary source, like if we were going to go over to the bookshelf and find something like some of the founding documents of the country, or maybe a book that was written in the 17th century about government and how historians use those differently. So you'll learn about that in the lesson in the module. But you want to be able to classify sources, and then we're going to try to be able to classify American history learner as a historical source. And in the end, you're going to be able to hopefully apply this in your module assignment and synthesize all these ideas through your cover letter. So each module will start with a set of module objectives, and then I'm going to present you with kind of what the instructions for the module assignment. Each module is kind of working towards this capstone assignment where all of this is going to come together. In this case, the Module 1 assignment, you can find the directions here. You can see that this module assignment seeks to do all of those things. So you can click here and it'll pull up the directions. You're going to have to write a cover letter where you articulate, first you talk about why this class has meaning and value in your academic and experience and maybe your personal or professional life going forward. Kind of like the philosophical value of taking American History 1 at Pitt Community College. Next, you're going to present a discussion in your cover letter. Again, this is kind of a role play activity where you're applying to work at my newspaper for me as an intern. And the way you're going to get this job is to be able to do these things, is to tell me why studying the past is valuable, right? And to make a strong case, a compelling case for why individuals in society should study the past. You're going to then try to articulate that, hey, I know how to use primary sources. Working at this newspaper is going to require me to use primary and secondary sources. Here's what primary and secondary sources are. Here's how you tell the difference. And here's demonstrate your ability to classify them. And then in the end, you're going to say, hey, while I'm working at American History Learner, we're going to have to deal with these sources, but we're going to be producing actual historical interpretations. And so you're going to try to apply and demonstrate your application of those understanding by articulating what you think our newspaper could be. Now, I don't think there's one answer to this question, so have fun with it and really kind of try to dive into the way historians think. So you're going to start with this lesson right here. What is history and how do we do it? This is important. You want to make sure you're taking notes here. There's a lot of good information really that's going to set you up for the whole assignment. This is where you're going to mine your information. I'm going to present you with some ideas about why we should study history. I really want you to, in your analysis, to pull directly from this. And what I mean by that is, like, don't just kind of generally muse about, like, oh, hey, we study history so we don't repeat it. But instead, we've really kind of worked through some very academic concepts, some specific concepts of why studying of the past is personally valuable, academically valuable, socially valuable. So you want to really put some meat on your answers by tapping into that. Make sure you're taking notes, particularly with your answers to this, because if you go back into this, it's going to make you do all the lesson over. Pro tip is that first question about the quote, if you want to push through that quickly afterwards, you just type the word present in. That's what it's looking for. Don't tell anybody I said that, because I really want you guys to write what you think that Turner is saying. Make sure your answer has the word present in it, though. So you're going to go through this lesson. You're going to take some notes. You're going to pull some quotes and some things like this. But here, the next part, each module, again, we're culminating this capstone assignment, the module 1 assignment. Every module is going to be working towards a major type assignment. But what we have in the first week, though, is we have these pre-assignments, these module assignment notebooks. And these are like preparatory assignments. These are probably the most important. They're not the most valuable when it comes to the overall contribution to your final grade, right? Is the module 1 assignment is far more valuable than the assignment notebooks. But the more you put into these notebooks, the easier that module assignment is going to be, the more you're going to get out of it, and the more positions you are going to have for success. So for on Monday, you have these 4 pre-writing assignments that you have to do. If you look at each one, they're all components of your module 1 assignment. They're like all little subsets. So what do you got to do in your cover letter? One of the things you have to do is talk about why you have to convince me that you have like a strong case for, like, hey, this is why people should study the past, right? So this first pre-writing assignment is going to force you to do some of these things. Is right, like, go ahead and write a paragraph about why studying the past is valuable. Now, I hope that you're going to do this, is you should make sure that you reflect upon and integrate a quote from the What is History lesson. This is your first opportunity to use a supportive source, and make sure I give you 4 reasons why studying the past is valuable in that lesson. So I would consider referencing those 4 reasons, or maybe at least 1 or 2 of them, right, at the very minimum, that you might see as most important. And then as historians, we're always trying to make our case compelling. So after you provide your analysis, you say, well, look, here's a professional historian who said something very similar to what I am arguing. So go ahead and document that quotation later. This is kind of your notebook. You can come back and work on these. You can come back and mine this for data later on. If you go to the next notebook, you look, hey, this is the next part of the cover letter. In this cover letter, you have to talk about why. You have to be able to articulate the characteristics of primary and secondary sources. So this is forcing you to go ahead and do some of those things. So tell me in 2 or 3 sentences what primary sources are and provide some examples. Tell me in 2 or 3 sentences what secondary sources are and provide me some examples. And then this third part is like about how do you then, when you look at a source, how do you classify it? Like, what is it that makes it what it is? The third part of the discussion is going to continue to build on that. Is like, man, sometimes it's really hard to see if something is a primary, secondary source. And to give you a little kind of spoiler alert, is sometimes a source can be both. It just depends on how you use it, right? So, and for lack of a better or another place, I'm going to give you some feedback like this. When I was in graduate school, there was this I was working on this article about South Carolina during the Revolution, and there's this book that was written in like 1812 about something that happened in the 1770s. So in theory, this is somebody looking back at an event, and they're kind of like doing a history of Charleston. And in one way, that is a secondary source, and it's like most commonly people would classify that as a secondary source. But in my research, I used it as a primary source because I was looking at one type of event that happened while this historian lived, and this guy was a kid during that time. And so what I was trying to use this work as is in his entirety of his work was probably a secondary source, but what I was mining it for and what I was trying to look into the psyche of his presentation was a primary source. So it's kind of like what questions you're asking about sources and how you use them that in many ways determines what they are. Last, this is going to force you to start to think about like why this class is meaningful. So look, you're going to do these assignment notebooks, and then you're going to go and you're going to finish up. You're going to wait for me. Next week, I'm going to give you some feedback. I'm going to tell you where you can do some things maybe a little bit better, or maybe some other things to think about where you're really doing things strong. And then you're going to go, and after you get that feedback next week, you're going to wait for that feedback, and then you're going to go and you're going to submit your cover letter. So, sorry that this is kind of like a bombardment of video information. Maybe I'll consider deleting that video in the future. I'm going to go back and look at it, make sure I didn't miss anything and comprising this. And thank you for the students that reached out to me and said, the kind of maybe that it's time to update. You guys pushed me along to update that video finally when it comes to the visual elements of it. So if you got questions about this, of course you can always email me. But I really want us to use that water cooler forum. All right, I think that would be a great place for us to interact with each other. If you have some general questions and some things, and maybe some of your students can give you some feedback into it as well. So I hope that this gives you a little bit, kind of eases some of those concerns and puts you on the right track. Make sure the more you put into those notebooks, the more you're going to get out of, the better you're going to position yourself for success. I'll talk to you guys soon.